coming up tonight on the News at 6.
I'm Jonathan Ambarian at the Montana State Capitol. Montana's new governor is making a change in how the state responds to COVID-19. We'll have a closer look at what he's announcing.
Plus, 2 members of Montana's congressional delegation are saying they will support challenges to the 2020 election results. MTN's chief political reporter Mike Dennison explains what that means.
From Montana's news leader, this is MTN News at 6.
Good evening. Welcome to the News at 6. I'm Marian Davidson. Thanks for joining us. Well, Governor Greg Gianforte has taken his first action to shape Montana's response to COVID-19, focusing on getting the vaccine to vulnerable populations. He also announced plans to repeal the state's mask mandate, but not just yet. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian has the latest.
Governor Greg Gianforte announced Tuesday that his new administration will make a shift in priorities in battling COVID. Gianforte said he plans to revise or replace a number of directives from the previous governor.
Our goal is to make these new directives and guidance very clear. They will be practical and will take into account that while we are in the middle of a public health crisis, we are also in the middle of an economic crisis.
First, Gianforte said the state would prioritize getting vaccines to people who are particularly vulnerable to COVID, those 70 or older, and people with underlying conditions that put them at higher risk for complications. He estimated that 250,000 to 300,000 Montanans are in that group, and said the state will work with health departments and providers to make sure they have access.
This will not be simple. There will be challenges, but we are committed to prioritize protecting the most vulnerable in our communities next.
Gianforte also announced he plans to remove the statewide mask mandate, but only after more of the vulnerable population receives the vaccine and after the legislature approves a bill to protect businesses, schools, and other organizations from lawsuits if they make a good faith effort to protect people from COVID. He said he hopes that will be in weeks, not months.
To combat the virus, I believe providing incentives and promoting personal responsibility are more effective than imposing impractical mandates.
Gianforte didn't announce any changes Tuesday in the state directive that limits operating hours and capacity for businesses like bars and restaurants, but he said to expect an announcement in the coming days. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Gianforte also announced coming changes to the state's COVID-19 dashboard, including adding data on the number of vaccines administered in Montana. Right now, about 23,000 Montanans have already received their first dose. And the Montana Chamber of Commerce says they are glad to see the governor put an emphasis on liability protection for businesses following COVID-19 guidelines.
That's an issue that was identified not too long after the COVID pandemic broke out in Montana. It's an issue that has hung with businesses. It's something that they're very concerned about. And so that's been a top priority of ours moving forward.
The Montana Chamber has been working with State Senator Steve Fitzpatrick of Great Falls to come up with legislation. The bill would protect businesses that were following public health guidance related to COVID-19 from liability lawsuits. Local mandates and restrictions would still apply to the businesses. Lewis and Clark Public Health said they agree with Gianforte on the importance of individual responsibility, but they are concerned the mask mandate may be removed before the majority of Montanans are fully vaccinated.
At a time when a unified approach is needed to protect individuals and their families and their friends and their neighbors, statewide directives are very beneficial to help set the standard and set the expectation for behavior, just like many other laws do.
Lewis and Clark Public Health says Gianforte's expansion of individuals that qualify for Phase 1B of vaccination is going to be a big lift. They agree people most at risk should be a priority, but the expansion will increase the number of people that qualify in the county by more than 29,000 people. And now let's take a look at the state's COVID-19 situation. Montana COVID-19 case numbers are back on the rise. 723 more COVID-19 cases have been reported since last night, bringing the active number of cases to just under 5,000. 6 more deaths were reported since last night, and that brings the statewide death total to 1,035. Active hospitalizations also rose, and those are just over 200. MTN uses a combination of state and local data to provide you with the most up-to-date numbers regarding COVID-19 in our state. And because of that, our numbers may differ from the state. All right, now it's time for First Weather with Chief Meteorologist Curtis Grubnitz.
Well, good evening, everybody. Let's take a look at the overall pattern here. We had a little rain, free car wash last night, and a few flakes of snow moving through the state. That system moving now into the Dakotas, but boy, it has been so stormy out in the Pacific so far this winter season, really since about Thanksgiving. We've had low pressure after low pressure after low pressure out here throughout a lot of the central and eastern Pacific. And what that does to the jet stream is it kind of acts like a seesaw. When you have all these storms out here, it's almost like there is one giant pressure anomaly, low pressure anomaly, lower pressure than normal. So you get persistent low pressure, and what that does is that kind of flips the jet stream up here over the western United States. And the way that everything is positioned, with the low out here and a high over the western United States and the jet stream coming in at us from the southwest, that will leave us dry and mild for at least another couple of weeks. A little short on snow, but we do have a little snow to talk about. It's another windy weekend, not as bad as last weekend, and at least the days are getting longer. The sunlight for all you purists out there. More on the full forecast coming up.
All right, thanks for that, Curtis. Well, when Congress votes tomorrow to confirm the results of the 2020 presidential election, the two Republican members of Montana's congressional delegation, Senator Steve Daines and Congressman Matt Rosendale, say they will support challenges to the results. MTN Chief Political Reporter Mike Dennison explains what that means and our delegation members' positions.
Confirming the electoral votes in a presidential election is usually a routine affair, but not Wednesday, when at least 140 Republican House members and a dozen GOP senators say they will support objections to the election results in a half dozen so-called disputed states. When that happens, the House and Senate will debate each objection and vote on it. Those votes will most certainly fail, and Democrat Joe Biden will be officially confirmed as winner of the presidential election. Daines and his fellow objectors in the Senate say the 2020 election featured unprecedented allegations of voter fraud. They want to create a commission to investigate these allegations and then allow a state, if it chooses, to convene a special legislative session to change their presidential vote. Rosendale said Tuesday he will support challenges in some states, but didn't identify which ones. He also cited what he called widespread allegations of voter fraud and said challenging presidential election results is a precedent set earlier by Democrats. We asked both Daines and Rosendale to identify what they consider credible or unprecedented incidents of voter fraud or where it happened. They did not specifically reply. As for precedent, some Democrats in Congress have objected when Republicans won the presidential election in 2000, 2004, and 2016. The difference, however, is that in each of those years, we did not have a candidate like President Trump actively attempting to overturn the certified election results. Rosendale and Daines are essentially supporting that effort when no credible evidence has surfaced of any level of voter fraud or irregularities that would change the outcome of the presidential election. And the third member of our delegation, Democratic Senator Jon Tester, he says it's long past time to end what he called these irresponsible attacks that put our democracy at risk, and for Congress to start addressing serious issues that face the nation. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
If the challenges are defeated, Biden's election will be confirmed by Congress. And it is a big day in Georgia. Voters going to the polls in a pair of Senate runoff races, and these races mean a lot to the rest of the country. The balance of power in the U.S. Senate is in the hands of voters in that state. Democrats Jon Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock are looking to unseat Republican incumbents David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. If both Democrats win, there will be a 50-50 split in the Senate, giving Vice President Kamala Harris the tie-breaking vote. Now, if one or both Republicans are reelected, the GOP will maintain a slim majority. Now, voters know what a big deal this runoff election is.
You know, who would know out of all the places that everything would come back here? You know, to be like, this is the defining moment.
The runoff is framed by ongoing and unsubstantiated claims of election fraud by President Donald Trump. Over the weekend, President Trump spent more than an hour on the phone with Georgia's Republican Secretary of State, lobbying to overturn his loss there. Election officials refute Trump's accusations. And still ahead on the news at 6, states are starting to receive money to help people pay their rent. Who qualifies and which states are at the top of the list?
From Montana's news leader, you're watching MTN News at 6.
Welcome back to the news at 6. Thanks so much for spending some time with us this evening. Well, most states are starting to receive some of the billions of dollars set aside to help Americans pay their rent. This money could help 40 million people who owe back rent. Alicia Nieves shows us how someone qualifies and which states may get help first.
In the latest stimulus package, the federal government has paired the new eviction moratorium extension with $25 billion in rental assistance.
These funds can be used to pay back rent or back utility that's owed. It can also assist with forward rent and forward utility payments.
Diane Yantel is with the National Low Income Housing Coalition, which advocated for this kind of funding, but explains the new rental assistance comes with very specific qualifications for renters in need.
They have to be at 80% or below area median income, and localities are required to have a preference for people who are at 50% or below area median income.
In addition to income qualifications, renters also have to prove a risk of becoming homeless without assistance and have to actively search for a rental assistance program in their area, which could vary widely depending on your state.
Early on in the pandemic, there were some funds made available to states and localities to create emergency rental assistance programs. So we've been tracking those programs. At last count, there were about 520 of them across the country. About 30% of those programs have already shut down because the resources have been depleted.
Renters in states and localities where there are existing rental assistance programs still in place, they will have access to the rent relief first, while those in parts of California, Alabama, Georgia, West Virginia, and Tennessee, where programs have closed or never existed, they will have to wait until a new program is created.
So on our website at nlihc.org, we have a map and a database of all the emergency rental assistance programs that exist now. We'll continue to track those, so that might be a good place for viewers to look. They can also call 211.
It's unclear how quickly the $25 billion will run out, but most organizations like Yantel's are almost sure it's not enough, estimating more like $100 billion could be what is needed to get all struggling renters through this pandemic. I'm Alicia Nieves reporting.
The FBI issued a new warning about cyber attacks against schools as students return to class in 2021. The FBI warning indicated a 30% increase in ransomware attacks on schools. The Bureau says more people are online during distance learning, including parents, and hackers can exploit systems and personal information. Agents say it is hard to stop attacks because they do not know where the next one will hit. The FBI says it is important for parents, students, and schools to report anything suspicious. All right, now with another look at the weather, here's Chief Meteorologist Curtis Gravenitz.
Well, let's take a look. No real snow in the forecast. How about Arctic air? This is going through the rest of this week, and really all the cold stuff bottled way on north of the Arctic Circle here. There may be a little colder air towards the end of next week, moving towards the state. I'll have more on the forecast coming up next.
Storm Tracker weather starts now with Chief Meteorologist Curtis Gravenitz.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Got an email asking why my scooter isn't decorated a little bit more. I'm going to effort that here in the next few days. I will accessorize with my scooter here. But good evening, good Tuesday evening. 32 degrees, freezing in Great Falls. A lighter southwest wind at about 12 miles per hour. In Helena, 38 degrees, and the wind has been pretty gusty throughout the course of the day. Some gusts up to about 20 miles per hour, not 68 like we had on Sunday. There you can see the temperatures in the 20s and the 30s here for most of the state. And wind, yeah, pretty strong up around Cup Bank in the East Glacier region, but not that bad. Elsewhere here on the radar, a little rain, a little snow last night into this morning. Boy, it didn't take a lot of snow, and the roads were pretty slick out there in spots this morning. That system is now moving out into the plains, and we've got another system Coming into the Pacific Northwest, boy, Washington and Oregon, British Columbia being hit really, really hard so far this winter. Almost the opposite of Montana here. A lot of rain and a lot of snow just over on that side of the mountains. And yeah, otherwise around the country, kind of quiet right now. We've got a little snow into the northeast and a little of that rain and snow moving through the central part of the country. Who's ready for a little snow? Got a little snow for you coming up here. There you can see some of the white stuff again, northern parts of Idaho and Washington into British Columbia for Wednesday. A lot of Montana on Wednesday, looking at partly cloudy skies. We'll likely have another little Chinook arch cloud formation developing right on the Rocky Mountain frontier. So there will be mostly cloudy skies right there underneath that cloud. But elsewhere, central eastern Montana, not a bad day, not too terribly windy. Here are the clouds increasing though late tomorrow evening, and here comes this little storm. Shortly after midnight, we'll start to see a little in the way of some flakes flying around Helena and Great Falls, across north central Montana, down there around Townsend and Boulder, picking up just a little in the way of some light snow. By early Thursday morning, 7, 8 o'clock, that snow moving into the central part of the state and already beginning to clear by late morning around Helena and Great Falls. A little later on into the afternoon, some of the snow will move out of eastern Montana. Not talking a lot of snow, just a little snow, but a little snow is more than no snow, which is what we've had here recently. And there you can see through Thursday early morning, maybe an inch or two across the central part of the state. A few places into the higher terrain above about 5,000 feet could see as much as 3-4 inches of snow. Tonight, 20s to literally freezing in Great Falls, a few 20s further out the High Line. Again, not too shabby, not too cold out there. All of these lows are above average. Here's the forecast for tomorrow. There's that little storm moving in late, so we'll have some sunshine to start. Mostly cloudy skies by the afternoon around Great Falls. Havre, 50 degrees tomorrow here. And what is the coldest time of the year. For Thursday, there's that little system working its way across the state. I doubt there will be much of any rain mixed in, just a little light snow early around Helena and Great Falls, and whenever snow does fall, will melt, with highs getting above the freezing point later in the afternoon. For Friday, not a bad day, mostly sunny skies, 30s to about 40 degrees, a little snow west of the divide, and then heading into Saturday, high pressure still kind of over eastern Montana, so that will keep a lot of the state dry and fairly comfortable. Temperatures into the 30s. Here's the 7-day forecast for Helena. There you can see the little light snow Wednesday night into Thursday morning. The weekend really does look pretty nice for January. Mostly sunny, partly cloudy conditions with temperatures into the 30s. Not a lot of wind until about next Tuesday. And then for Great Falls, a little light snow Wednesday night and Thursday morning. And the wind, not as bad as last weekend, but you'll notice it this coming weekend.
All right, thanks, Curtis. Still ahead, a preview of tonight's crosstown wrestling matchup.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching MTN News at 6.
Welcome back to the News at 6. 2021 has started, and so have high school winter sports. The Helena High Bengals and the Helena Capital Bruins ring in the new season with some crosstown action starting tonight in just under an hour. MTN's Sam Hoyle has what you need to know ahead of the showdown.
Well, it is official. High school sports are back in the capital city once again. Winter sports starting up with the beginning of the new year, and they start with a little bit of crosstown action. The Helena Capital Bruins playing host to the Helena High Bengals out on the wrestling mats this evening. Now, in terms of spectators, the winter spectator policy has not changed since it was released in late December. That means spectators will be capped at 25 people just for the home crowd. So unfortunately, Helena High Bengals fans are going to have to sit this one out on the bench. That being said, you can come back here tonight at 10 o'clock to catch the highlights. We're always on montanasports.com. Reporting in Helena, Sam Hoyle, MTN Sports.
All right, and we'll wrap things up here on the News at 6 when we come back.
Montana's news leader. You're watching MTN News at 6.
Welcome back to the News at 6. Well, you have probably heard people call 2020 a dumpster fire. So it only makes sense that one Florida, and of course this is Florida, fire department, ended the year by responding to an ironic last call. Yes, they responded to a dumpster fire. Now, as they were counting down to the new year, Brevard County firefighters were called out to an actual dumpster fire. They put it out and no one was hurt, but the department says it kind of summed up 2020. The firefighters even took a picture by the dumpster after, of course, putting out the flames. So here's to 2021. All right, and that does it for the news at 6. We'll see you back here tonight at 10 for your latest local headlines and another look at that weather. We'll see you then.